One of the major draws for San Angelo State Park is its hiking and mountain biking trails. There are about 50 miles of trails in this park, and for our first weekend, really, opportunity to explore the park, we thought we'd see how many we could do.
At least today we got 6.5 miles worth, and I think we covered at least 5 different trails or sections of 5 different trails.
Yeah, not every trail is super long. I mean, there's a lot of different trails in here. I think, like I said, there's 50 miles total, but it's a really different kind of terrain depending on what trail you're on. We saw everything from flat trails to really technical rocky trails and really nice vistas to some flat prairie land kind of stuff.
Yeah, this part of Texas has a little bit of everything. And what's really interesting is you kind of can see behind us what looks like a big prairie. Used to be a lake. The O.C. Fisher, there's the O.C. Fisher Dam and the O.C. Fisher Reservoir Lake that was built, I believe, don't quote me on this, but I think in like the 1950s or 60s to protect San Angelo from flooding. But over the years, between different droughts and other reasons, the lake is essentially dried up, and now it's a very small thing. But what is prairie behind us used to be all water. So as we're walking through these trails, all of a sudden you'll come across a section where it was very obviously that was a boat ramp or a campground overlooking a lake or just a road that would have led to a picnic area overlooking the lake. And now they're kind of just out in the middle of nowhere. It's really kind of strange.
Well, yeah, we found the what we assumed was some sort of abandoned campground that the state doesn't use anymore. And what was interesting was we walked around there, and we've got footage. I'll show that so everybody can see what it looks like. It's kind of creepy because it's
Very eerie.
what happens to a campground when you abandon it. But as you're walking around out there, as you get out to the main road coming in, there's a big sign that says like danger, lake ahead, slow down or something. And
There's no water to be seen anywhere.
no, it's a ways off. I mean, there is some water in this lake now, but it's very, very small. And based on the number of boat ramps, day use areas, campgrounds, like you said, that must have been a huge draw at one time for people to come out to this lake.
So this is the map of San Angelo State Park. Well, actually, this is the map of the southern unit. There's a whole nother northern unit like up here, which we'll have to explore some other time. And we did, but if you can see here, there's just trails everywhere. And you're probably not really going to see this on the camera. So we'll either link to it or you can go look it up online yourself. But like I said, we did about 5 or 6 trails today, or portions of them, of sort of this middle section here. One thing that we discovered here at the park is you can't actually drive from the northern end to the southern. There's just no road through the park that connects. You only can do it by trails. But there are a couple of different day use areas that you can drive, hike, or bike into and then leave your vehicle and then go out on the trail. So that's what we did. We rode our bikes to the Isabel Hart day use area, locked them up, and then we headed out on Winding Snake Trail to Burkett Trail to Potts Creek Trail to Park Access Road to Roller Coaster Trail to Lanky Lackey and then back to the day use area.
On Winding Snake, right? We ended up
Oh, yeah, we did cut back through Winding Snake.
we connected. You could take Lanky Lackey all the way to a road and then walk back to the area, but we wanted to stay off the road. So we ended up reconnecting back to Winding Snake and brought that back. So we essentially created a loop out of what, 6 different trails?
6 different trails, like I said, for about 6.5 miles worth today, which we kind of said it was going to be about a 6-mile hike. So that's actually not too bad for us, considering that we did stop and do some video and walked around the creepy campground for a little bit and everything. So that was a really good hike. We started about 12:30, 1 o'clock. It took us 3.5 hours, and that was at a pretty decent pace. I mean, we stopped to enjoy the scenery and look around and everything. So there's just a lot of options out here. And we did see people with kids. We saw people on mountain bikes. All of these trails are designed for both mountain bikers and hikers. And some of these trails are pretty technical if you were out here on a mountain bike. Definitely not taking our bikes down this. Don't think my bike would survive. Well, maybe up there it would. Now, if somebody wants to get us fat tire bikes, then maybe we could take our bikes down here.
Yeah, it's not something we're going to try in our hybrids, that's for sure. And particularly roller coaster was a tricky one. That'd be pretty tricky on a bike. It was hard enough on feet.
On a bike, this would not be for the faint of heart, which means we will not be doing this on our bikes because I'm not that crazy.
And this is roller coaster trail.
Roller coaster, which I can see why now. and would be very slick if it was wet.
A fun hike, though.
Yeah, it's a great hike.
We're out on the Burkett Trail, and it's early March.
Yeah.
I've lost track. Early March.
I think it's early March.
And it's pretty dry out here, but we've seen indications that it can be wet at times.
Yeah, there's a number of little bridges for the bikes and the hikers, and a lot of imprints of horseshoes, wildlife, people footprints that have dried into where it was muddy at one time. So clearly this area does get wet. Luckily it's not right now, but I can see that it would be much different conditions in other situations.
One of the things I noticed is a lot of you'll look at the map and you might say, oh, this one's a loop, but all of these others are out and back. Well, what we discovered was a lot of them connect. There's intersections.
Yeah.
So you can create a loop of pretty much any size you want. I mean, we did a pretty good sized loop, and it was really just kind of watching. It's pretty well marked in terms of the trail. Once you're out on the trail, it's obvious what the trail's, what the trail is. And then all the intersections have these, pretty good permanent trail marker signs that kind of direct you where to go. So that was handy to see that as well.
Yeah, I think there were only a couple places where we were a little confused, but really all we discovered was if we just kept walking like another 10 yards, usually we'd come to a signpost that was maybe just around the bend or across the road because like I said, there are some roads that are essentially abandoned out here because they would have gone to a boat ramp that no longer exists. So sometimes you just kind of have to get past that point. But I think, yeah, we found that they were pretty well marked. So kudos to Texas for marking the trails out here.
Couple things to mention in terms of being prepared, because that's always one of our messages, is at the DUC area we parked, which was the Isabel, right? And then there's a Burkett trailhead that we got to. Both of those had bathrooms, so you could, do what you needed to do before you hit the trail. But once you get out further out into the trails, there are no bathroom facilities, no vault toilets, no nothing. There's a couple spots, the abandoned campground, and there's another area that seems to be abandoned. There are old bathroom buildings, but there's nothing there to use.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind. The other thing I would mention is, again, it's a beautiful sunny day out here. It's in the 60s, but it feels much warmer. And we're here in early March. They always warn you in Texas, if you're out for the day, carry plenty of water. And I could see on some of these trails, if it's, in the 90s or 100 degrees out here where it can get in the summertime, plenty of water be really important, and good sun protection, hat, sunscreen, anything you would need to keep yourself safe.
I did notice a number of people here in the park have the hats with like the shawl things that come off of them that protect your neck. And I'm assuming that they are true Texans who live here and understand that the sun gets really hot. We don't usually have that problem at home, so we don't have those, but I saw a number of people wearing them, and I could see that that's going to beat down on the sun's going to beat down on you pretty good. So definitely be prepared.
Yeah, even just a hat with a brim. You'll see in some of the videos I have a different hat that I wear when I'm hiking a lot of times when I know it's going to be sunny, because there's a wider brim and protects my neck and my ears, that kind of stuff. So just something to keep that in mind, especially if you're here in the warmer months with water and having some food with you to keep your energy up, that sort of thing. Take it seriously.
That concludes day one of our hiking adventures here at San Angelo State Park. So stay tuned for tomorrow. We're not really sure where we're going yet, but probably maybe more closer to the northern section of the park just to check out something different, see if the terrain or the foliage is any different up there. But there are a lot of trails here. So I think no matter what your ability level or your skill or your just interest in different times of the year, I mean, right now it's still pretty early, so there's not a whole lot of flowers out or anything, but we've heard it's really pretty in the springtime.
So tomorrow we don't know exactly where we're starting, where we're going to end up, or how far we're hiking. So it's another day of hiking for the Adlers. This is how we do things, but we always have fun. Welcome to day 2 of hiking at San Angelo State Park. We did about 7.5 miles today on how many trails? Because I lost count.
I had to look it up. We did all or a portion of 8 different trails in the northern section of the park today.
We are parked in, there's a big parking area here, and there's a trailhead for the northern section of the park. I would point out, and we talked about this during our hike today, there are 2 trails that leave from the trailhead. But there's, 8, 10, I don't know how many trails are in this northern part of the park.
There's a lot.
But if you want to do some of the trails, you have to go on another trail and connect to it. So that's something just to keep in mind as you're out here.
I think that is one of the biggest things, simply because you do start out on 2 sort of main trails, but then they branch, and those branches can be anywhere from 2 miles to a half a mile, and then they go into all sorts of varying lengths of other trails. And so, like I said, we did about a section of or all of 8 different trails worth. And we didn't even get all of them in because we could have kept going and going and going and Hadley had to make a decision that we were just going to loop back around and cut one of the trails short. So I think that is something to keep in mind depending on where you want to go. If you want to hit one of those trails that's deeper into the park, you're probably going to want to find the shortest way to get to that cutoff, whereas we were sort of doing like the outer loops.
Well, if you remember from our video from day one, we said that we didn't know what we were going to do today, how many trails would be on, where we would end up, or how far we would go. And that's we kind of started off and said, well, let's just start hiking and see where these lead us. And we did know we definitely wanted to do Dinosaur Trail.
Yep.
That was one that had been, talked about, and we wanted to try it out. And that was a really different kind of trail from yesterday. It was very flat.
Very wide open.
Fields of cactus or cacti or whatever. But there's a lot of them, like bunches of them. I've never seen that many. So that was kind of neat to see that.
But you are right. That was a very flat, wide open section of trail. And so if you're here in the summer, you're definitely going to have the sun beating down on you for that. But that trail is really cool because it leads you to these old fossils of actually pre-dinosaurs. It's called the Dinosaur Trail, but they're actually fossils of reptiles that were here prior to the dinosaurs.
And it's footprints. I don't think it's actually fossils.
Oh, that's true. I'm sorry. It's footprints.
But there are footprints. There's tracks in the riverbed.
Aren't they still considered fossils?
I don't think so. Fossils are the creatures, and footprints are what the creatures left behind.
It's
I don't
all
know.
fossilized
If you know the
in
answer
a rock.
to that, if you happen
Clearly,
to be
we're not paleontologists.
If you're a paleontologist, please explain this to us in the comments below. No, but there's
Hold on, I'm going to look it up on the little thingy here because it tells us.
There's tracks, either whatever they're called. There's tracks in the riverbed.
Fossilized creature tracks. So we're both right.
We're both right. Excellent. Okay. So you can sort of see these tracks, and they have it marked off in this area, and it's this little area they have fenced off, and you can wander in and try to find them. They do guided dinosaur tours, which I think would be helpful because I'm sure we walked past a whole bunch of stuff and wouldn't know what it is because they said they found like 26 different species with footprints in this thing.
I don't think species, 26 different tracks.
26 different tracks. Okay, yeah. Still, we found maybe half a dozen that we said, yeah, that's definitely looks like a footprint. But I'm sure there was other stuff in there that we didn't see. But that was kind of neat to see that. And then you can kind of continue down Dinosaur Trail and connect with other trails.
Hi.
Are we lost?
No, we are. I don't know where we are.
But we're not lost.
No, we're not lost. We're where all the pretty colors come together. No, we are we are leaving the Dinosaur Trail and we're going to the Upper Big Hill Trail. And then from there, I don't know where we're going.
But that flat land all behind you is what we hiked on the Dinosaur Trail.
It is. We did not see any dinosaurs. We did not see any dinosaur horses, which is what the sign kept telling us. So I'm not really sure what that was all about. And the tracks that they led us to were not actually, in fact, dinosaur tracks. They were tracks made by things that came 90 million years before the dinosaurs. So I'm not really sure why it's called Dinosaur Trail. One of the things that I found really cool, especially in this northern section, but it is elsewhere in the park too, is that they have both equestrian and biking trails that run parallel to each other but are separate. So that way the horses and the bikes are not on the same trail and competing for space and concern about safety. But the hikers can go on either one. And in some cases, we chose to take the horse trail. In some cases, we chose to take the bike trail and cross back and forth a few times.
You just have to trot every so often. That's skipping. And you're supposed to be banging 2 halves of coconuts together.
I don't have any coconuts.
The Monty Python fans will get that reference.
I really liked that because I know that many times, especially the equestrians, have concerns about their horses being spooked by the mountain bikers. And San Angelo has done a really good job of keeping them separate here.
I would add, though, the reason that we cross back and forth between bikes and horses is because there were several intersections. The intersections were fine; they seemed to be
Yes.
well marked. It's you'd be out in the middle of the trail, and all of a sudden there's these branches, and you're
You're
like,
like, what?
"Which is the actual trail?" And so we would, we'd be starting out on the horse trail, and then we'd say, "Well, we think it continues this way," and then we'd come out, and it would go, "Oh, we've been on the bike trail for a while."
Well, and as we even found, we a family on horses went by, and the son was like, I think we were on the wrong trail because they came off the bike trail. But as we followed it in, we realized how easy it was to get confused because there are additional tracks out there, paths that have either been made by animals or have been changed by the park over the years. And so I think there's a handful of places where it's confusing, but otherwise it's actually really well marked.
It is. And even the places where it's a little confusing, it's not like you're going to get lost out there. I think it's more of you might end up on the bike trail instead of the horse trail, but you'll be on a trail that you can get home. So that's not an issue. One thing that I noticed while we were out there, and I commented on a couple of times compared to yesterday, and it is a little warmer today than yesterday, but only a few degrees. I thought the area we were in today was more arid. It just felt more like the desert prairie type. And I think maybe the Dinosaur Trail in particular, because it was so wide open.
It was different today in different sections. I found it to be more sandy, and so our shoes got really dusty, whereas yesterday it was a lot more rock and a lot more, as we mentioned, that, like, sort of red clay what would be mud at certain times, but today it was definitely more sandy and dusty.
One of the other things I found that you were on this side, the north side, as opposed to the south side, is there were a lot more a lot more opportunities where you would see where the water used to
Oh,
be,
yeah.
either from the reservoir lake that was here or from the rivers that were originally here, the Concho River, where it's all dried up. And there's sections where there's just boat ramps to nothing. And we
It's
ended up
kinda sad.
talking to a ranger, and they said that OC Fisher Lake itself is at about like 6% or 8% of what it was at one time. They said that, years ago when they had all the boat ramps up and running and people really flocked to this place for the water, that the boat ramps we were putting in, the water was running 40 to 50 feet deep at those points. So it really, really deep lake. And a lot of people now, it's still used in part. They said there's
But
some fishing that
there's a
goes
little bit
on
of
out
fishing, but
there.
it's like they said at its max, it's 20 feet deep, and that's only in a couple spots. Otherwise, it's only about 6 to 8 feet deep. And yeah, 6%. So most of what we were walking through today would have been lake at one time with some gorgeous campsites overlooking that lake, but now they're just abandoned because after the lake dried up, nobody came anymore.
Well, there's one, it's Ghost Camp Trail, and you actually end up going through Ghost Camp. I mean, it's weird, it's kind of eerie because it's an
Yeah.
old camp that's just been abandoned, and the picnic tables are still there, and some of the shelters and stuff, but there, and you can tell where campsites were. But we found that throughout the park. There's been a number of
Mhm.
areas, and one of the rangers I talked to, I asked him about that, and he said a lot of times there were campsites and campgrounds that were essentially lakefront, and
Yeah.
people really came here for that. And then after the lake kind of dried up and everything emptied out, it's just not the draw that it used to have. So I guess they're just letting it revert
Right.
back to nature.
Well, and I think too that's a lot of where like the mountain biking and the hiking comes into play now that they've been able to repurpose the land for other uses. And so that's really good. And there is so much land here. It is very nice for like the equestrians and the bikers and the hikers that we can get out and enjoy it. One thing to keep in mind, if you're coming to the north unit, there is a gate lock, and so you have to get the gate code at the south entrance. At least that's of 2021 when we're here. I don't know if that's always the case or if it's only maybe in the winter, but at least when we are here, there were warnings that you had to get the gate code at the south entrance to get into the north entrance. So just make sure that you check the park website or give them a call before you get here so that you don't drive up here only find yourself locked out. But there is no way to drive between the south end and the north end, so you will have to make sure that you have a vehicle that can get you to the entrances.
I would mention too that in that coming in that one entrance we came in, as you head to the parking lot for the trailhead, you go right past the equestrian campground. There's a very nice equestrian campground here with water and electric on
Mhm.
site. They have corrals. It's just seemed like a really nice place. So no matter what you like to do, if you like to hike, if you bike, if you have a horse, if you have a friend with a horse, invite them along. There's plenty to do out here on all of these trails. So if you get a chance, come on out, hike, bike, horse. I don't know what you ride. I
Oh
guess
my
you
god,
ride a horse.
horse?
You can do it all at San Angelo State Park. In the meantime, keep on trekking.
And we'll see you out there. Horse? You do with a horse. Yes, you horse.
You hike, you bike, you horse.
You hike, you bike, you horse. Clearly, we don't horse.
Clearly, it's been a long day in the sun.